Greetings, programs. This is Wretch. Welcome back to VTM Coteries of New York. And in the last episode, we were introduced to Agathon, guys, and after assisting him with a ritual, we were actually able to impress the Tremere apprentice, which is saying something to be able to get on the good side of one of the warlocks. So all in all, we have made a good first impression with all 4 of our potential coterie members. Now we've got these missions up here, and I'm kind of curious where each one's going to lead. We've got Benoit, where we got a somewhat painful lesson in true faith. We've got this charming-looking gentleman, who is apparently a nosy reporter. But out of the 3, I think we need to go ahead and check this one out. Somebody's Watching Me, Part 1. Recently, you're feeling if somebody keeps tailing you. It's time to confirm your suspicions. Someone is following you around. Has been for a few nights, maybe longer. That can't be a good thing. The only question is, what to do about it. Provoke the stalker to appear, or tell Sophie you have a problem. How do we go about this? Maybe we need to go ahead and tell Sophie about it. This is clearly something more serious than what you can figure out on your own. You have to ask Sophie for help. She must have some experience with all kinds of stalkers, invisible or not. You make your way to Sophie's apartment, feeling watched the whole way. It would be better if you could shake the tail, but something tells you that's impossible. A ghoul lets you into Sophie's apartment. You're not sure how many servants she has, but their servility creeps you out. Does vampire blood do that to people? Or is it just Sophie's personality? The ghoul tells you that Sophie is not in and bids you to wait in the living room. You do as directed, settling down on a sofa. As you sit contemplating Sophie's decor, you feel strange, as if the feeling of being followed on the street never really left you. You don't have time to think more on this because Sophie strides in, clearly in a good mood. Well, if it isn't my favorite stray, am I imagining it, or have you started to dress a little better? You stand up, too worried to waste time on small talk. Ooh. Some kindred turn invisible, right? And creep after others of their kind? Yes, many do. I'm guessing this is not a chance question. This is a cause for concern, to be sure. In fact... Sophie looks around the room, suddenly startled. I can't believe it. As Sophie stands up, ready to face whatever danger she senses, an invisible force pushes aside her servant standing in the doorway. You hear the door to Sophie's apartment open and close. Sophie sighs and settles back down as the ghoul disappears into the hallway in a vain effort to catch the stalker. I suppose I should scold you, but in a town full of Malkavians and Nosferatu, that's probably useless. Sometimes this happens. This is embarrassing. You should be careful. I'll assign one of my servants to watch your haven. You leave Sophie's apartment, chastened and confused. If invisible orlocks and jesters can follow you anywhere, how are you supposed to stop it? I love the fact that one of the nicknames for the Nosferatu now are orlocks. That's awesome. Perhaps it's all part of the game the kindred seem to play with each other. Hard to say if that makes it better or worse. Okay, that one went alright, I suppose? That was just part 1, though. Qadir al-Azmai, the sheriff of New York City, is knocking to the door of your haven. The sight comes as more than a little shock. If he had business with you, you'd either expect him to see him already inside or never see him coming at all. Yet there he is, on the other side of the peephole, patiently and politely waiting for you to let him in. You carefully unlock the door and face him in silence.
Evening. May I come in?
You simply stare at him. Your lack of an answer doesn't faze him, and your lack of resistance as he starts walking inside has obviously been interpreted as a permission. Once inside, he starts looking around as you cautiously stay by the door.
Haven't really had time to make this place your own yet, have you? It feels like Langley's apartment through and through. A secluded study where nobody studies anything. Look at the books on this shelf. Obviously meant to impress the guests, not to be read. They reveal nothing about their owner, aside from an aching desire to be taken seriously as an intellectual.
He picks one of them up and smirks before putting it away.
The phenomenology of spirit, next to all this garbage poetry. We can make a bet. If she's read more than 20 pages, I owe you $50 and a gallon of blood.
The kind of place self-professed hermits entomb themselves in to suffer.
Considering how much you've had to run around these nights, you probably only use it to shelter from the sun and rest, right?
Even though he's obviously making an effort to come off as non-threatening, it's impossible to forget the first impression he's made. You still see him as a fierce predator, trying hard not to expose his true colors. You sense a familiar fight or flight response as you struggle to find a diplomatic answer to his last question. If Qadir is bothered by your silence, he doesn't let it show. He keeps walking around, toying with whatever catches his eye. Eventually, he speaks up again.
Watched any baseball lately? If I had to guess, you strike me as a Red Sox fan.
Now he's inviting you to talk in a more direct manner. You attempt to overcome your physical reaction to him and reply as casually as you can. So many choices. Your mind keeps going back to that night when everything has changed forever. Waking up in hell with a body next to you. Spending a night in that underground sweatbox, unsure what's going to happen next. That endless car ride. 3 strikes. A bloodthirsty crowd. That blade. A rebirth. A baptism by fire. A frightening executioner who made sure the flames scarred your spirit. As you look into his face, you realize he's read your emotions from yours.
Not in the mood to exchange pleasantries,
There's no animosity in his voice. He's just stating a fact.
Let me get straight to the point, then.
He momentarily stops caring about his surroundings, turning all of his attention to you, and demanding the entirety of your attention in return.
You see, there's something I've realized over the years. In a large part, I may have just been hired to look menacing with a sword, but my job is all about seeing through bonds and relationships. The Camarilla would be safe as long as its members adhered to certain social contracts, making their dealings and affinities plain for everyone to see. But that obviously remains a pipe dream. This is a community of born conspirators, overly ambitious gangsters and politicians, monsters in denial, and all sorts of tragically broken individuals. They're driven by desires that make them incompatible with the Masquerade, incompatible with prolonged survival of the Camarilla, incompatible with the methods I use to operate. And so, I'm doomed to be like a cop, constantly insulted behind my back, and maybe for good reason. but immediately called for help whenever someone loses their tableware. Or like a Christie novel detective, outwardly assisted by everyone, but constantly lied to about everyone's pasts and motivations, even when my failure to solve a mystery might be the end of all of us. He tries to sound like he's peacefully resigned to his fate, but it's easy to detect a tinge of regret in his voice, a voice belonging to someone who once had bigger ambitions than this. What broke him? So you see, for this detective, this why done it is far more important than who done it or how done it. When you understand all the players and their mutual obligations, you easily understand every crime. But of course, the kindred know it, so they devise ways to make my job much harder, such as conspiracies between two unrelated actors that depend on scratching each other's backs for mutual security. Or they enforce a blood bond to make someone unexpected their thrall, a boss serving their employee, a rebel serving the tyrant, just because one is regularly being forced to drink another's blood. What has Sophie seen in you? Why does the prince keep asking me about your actions? How come you're being pushed to build your own coterie so fast? You're surrounded by unclear motivations you yourself don't understand. That unnerves me, and it should unnerve you as well. This monologue has gone on for far long enough. Why are you here? What is this about? Finally, you manage to raise your voice. Qadir notices the effort and smiles softly. So you haven't gone mute since the last time I saw you. Good. Well, I'm here for a selfish reason. I need to develop a rapport with you to fulfill my obligations better. The last time we've met, I couldn't see you as an equal. Now that you're accepted into Camarilla, what choice do I have? I'd understand if you didn't want to see my face again, but I'm one of the faces of the New York City community, and as long as you're part of it, it's going to be impossible to avoid me. Especially when I have business with you. And I do. As you might have guessed by now, one of my tasks is uncovering and understanding your bonds, and one of them might endanger our community. Well, that's not menacing at all. Who's he talking about? Well, he talked about jumping in and being kind of an unwilling pawn, so out of all of these, I would say Kaiser. Is this about Kaiser? Qadir shakes his head. That leper is bad news if you ask me. But who doesn't trade information with him these days? No, it's not a major player. He produces a file from underneath his coat and passes it to you. This is our troublemaker. You open the file and see some printed photos. You freeze up as you recognize the face and are overwhelmed by a flood of repressed memories. Emma. The only person who's kept you hanging on through all these years. The only person in your corner of your never-ending fight against the world. Or in your corner. You've kept your shit together so far. Tried not to think about her until you get everything sorted out, but seeing her face brings a lump to your throat. You look up at Qadir, expecting answers. I'll be frank. At first, I thought you were a total commercial failure. Someone destined to eventually disappear from the streets of New York without a trace, and one soul to care. but it looks like your sister is the best guardian one could ask for. Lots of friends in high places and lots of favors to collect. The word is, she'll do anything to get you back.
The risk of endangering us is relatively low, but far from non-existent, which means your sister must be stopped. Must be stopped sounds threatening. You dread thinking what he's planning.
I'll arrange for you two to meet tomorrow so that you can straighten the situation out and say goodbye to the life you've forsaken.
He'll arrange... what? Your eyes must look like saucers right now.
Usually, these matters are left to my discretion, and I can't think of any easier solution. The lost sheep reappears, takes care of unfinished business, disappears never to be seen again. Nobody cares. It's simple. It's clean. No contrived schemes. No unnecessary victims. And it gives me an opportunity to learn more about you as I watch over. When neonates interact with kind they used to hold dear, their true nature is laid bare for everyone to see.
Of course he's got business in being kind to you. Or he's making it clear he's got self-serving intentions so that you don't start figuring those out yourself.
Any objections?
Any alternatives are probably worse. You shake your head.
Very well. I'll arrange a meeting and drive you there tomorrow. Better come up with a load of bull that's easy to swallow.
He disappears from the apartment, leaving you as confused as the last time he closed the doors on you. God damn it. You need to think it through. For a long time, you just sit in your haven, lost in your thoughts, trying to come up with lies that will convince the only person who's ever seen the real you. Oh, Agathon's back. And it looks like we can go ahead and jump back into this. Last time you failed to resolve the situation with your stalker. You have to get a handle on that one way or another. Alright. Give me one sec, guys. Alright. So I think we're going to go ahead and leave this one for now. Let's go ahead and check out A Nosy Reporter Part 1. There's a sleazy reporter from a gossip magazine sniffing around Sophie's haven. She could use your help with the problem. The streetlights filter in the apartment in a stark white glow, as if someone were shooting a movie outside. The art pieces display a tasteful expense entirely fitting the image you have of Sophie. It feels as if 1,000 sins have been committed on these premises, most of them under her benevolent hospitality. Sophie comes to greet you as you enter the living room, shaking her head. You understand that people judge me based on how you dress, don't you? She just complimented us last time. Sophie looks at your clothes as if resigned to your sartorial limitations. Or sartorial limitations. I've tried to dress inconspicuously because of the masquerade. That's very sensible of you. I suppose I should commend you for that. Sophie walks to the window and looks out, the streetlights playing on her features. She reminds you of a queen contemplating the unfortunate limitations of her subjects. You'd think that as a vampire, at least we wouldn't have to worry about the vultures of the press. Unfortunately, when you have power and ability, there are always parasites trying to feed on you. Is there a reporter after you? Yes, a terribly persistent creature. Sophie steps away from the window and settles down on a sofa, A wine glass with red liquid in it. Blood, treated as not to spoil. You become good at noticing the scent, even from a distance. She doesn't offer you any as you cautiously sit down across from her. This awful man has been stalking my apartment with a camera. He's gone through my trash, talked to the neighbors. Please be a dear and explain to him that there's nothing for him here. Ooh, should we use Auspex on Sophie? Yeah, what could go wrong? You're enjoying this, aren't you? I can see it in you. Nonsense. Some rancid beast is stalking me, that's all. It's just that the secrecy of the Masquerade is a bore sometimes. A necessary bore, but a bore nonetheless. This must happen often. How do you usually deal with it? Everyone has their own way. Sometimes the problem goes away with a bit of money or sharp words. Other times you need something more. Do you know anything about this reporter? Man, woman, young, old, anything like that? All gossip reporters look the same to me. Time for you to go. I have business to attend to. You leave the apartment as Sophie disappears into another room. You don't have a clear idea of the game she plays with the city's mortal and immortal power structures, but she always seems to be making a move. Outside on the street, there's a slight, warm drizzle. The kind that gets under your clothes and makes you want to take a shower when you get back into your own haven. No reporters immediately jump out to you. Yay for Auspex. New York smells of people. Thousands and thousands of them packed together. It takes a moment for you to get to grips with the full panoply of sensation. But once you do, there's one that sticks out. Cheap aftershave. The strong imprint of someone who has hung around the building a lot. Strong enough to persist despite this light rain. Still cigarette smoke. Sweat. You follow your hunch, and as you walk closer, you reflect on how sometimes being kindred makes things so easy. You enter an alley. A dark, dingy space between two tall buildings. Once upon a time, a place like this might have worried you, made you think of muggings and violence. Now it's clear that the most dangerous thing here is you. The man you are following seems to realize this too. He holds his camera in front of him like a shield, its heavy objective resting on his paunch, and with a start, you recognize him. You remember the face, the shaded sunglasses from a picture next to a byline in some trashy paper. The article was about a friend of yours, an artist, who was reported to be dating a celebrity. It was true, but the celebrity didn't want to be associated with your friend and broke it off afterwards. For months, your friend cursed Doutry's name. Or Doteries. Or Doteries? Doteries. Hey, don't go around scaring people like that. I gotta get a good voice for this guy. Hey, don't go around scaring people like that. You're Frank Dotery. I recognize you from that thing. You're a fake reporter, right? I'm a real reporter, damn it. A lot of scoops here in this dirty alley?
Hey, you can't be a journalist if you're not willing to get your hands dirty. Do you live here? I'm working on a story about a local resident. Her name is Sophie Langley. Everyone knows her in high society circles. From the way you look, I'm guessing you might know her too. Hey, she's a redhead, pretty as a picture, and there were a lot of pictures of her through the years. That's the thing, in fact. Look at this.
Frank pulls out his phone and starts showing you pictures. Some have been downloaded from news sites, while others are photos from the society pages of newspapers from past decades. All show Sophie. She has different clothes, hairstyles, makeup, names, but the face remains the same. That's strange. So, what do you think is going on?
It beats me. That's what I'm here to find out.
You must have a theory about what's happening.
Yeah, I have a theory or two. But before I print my theory, I need facts to back it up. 3 words. Extreme plastic surgery. All the celebrities do it. Only her doctor is better than the rest.
You look critically at the photos on Frank's phone. You're thinking the world's best plastic surgeon is working out of this alley?
Okay, fine. I don't know what this is about. So, how would you explain it?
Oh, I don't want to tell him that we know Sophie personally. Have you considered the possibility that those pictures are a hoax?
Sure, anything could be a hoax. But I dug up those old papers from the archives myself. I gotta have something usable.
Dominate? I don't have dominate. Unless I suddenly do now. Which at that point... Ooh. I don't know which way we need to take here. I mean, we could threaten with legal action. Let's see what happens here. You look Frank in the eyes. They're red behind his shaded glasses. Veins popped from years of neglecting his body. Suddenly he seems soft, easy to manipulate. His will nothing but plaster crumbling under your boot. Go home and destroy your research on Sophie Langley. As your vampiric gaze takes over Frank's mind, he feels less than a person and more like an automaton, a person you can program. Perhaps this is why older vampires are said to think of humans as nothing but animals. How can you consider someone a thinking person with free will when you can override them at any moment? Kind of reminds me of Kilgrave from Jessica Jones. Frank is mumbling, fondling his camera, inching around you to the entrance of the alley. He looks sad and worn as he goes. A man who used to be something, now just a shell. It feels almost embarrassing to use the powers of your blood on someone so weak. At least you're pretty sure he'll stay away. Well, I think that was probably the best way that we could go about that, to tell you the God's honest. Ooh, and we are about to have our meeting with Emma, guys. I don't know how that's normally going to go because, I mean, we could try to convince Emma to go away. I mean, we could probably use our disciplines on her, but who knows if she would be somehow resistant to it. Because I certainly don't want to kill her, because remember, we are being watched, and that's going to give Qadir a pretty interesting impression of us. So I don't know where the story's going to go from here, guys, but we're going to find out in the next episode. Hope you guys have enjoyed it. If you liked it, please leave a like down below. Subscribe to the channel, leave a comment, that'd be a big help. And we'll see you next time. Later days, everyone.